edition of the Daily Helmsman Sports Show. I'm your sports editor, John Martin. To my right is Scott Hall, sports reporter. Today we're going to be talking about, obviously this is the main voyage of the show, we're going to be talking about a few issues. We've got obviously the big kahuna on everybody's mind is the student section, which we put out a story about that yesterday, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're also going to talk a little bit about the University of Memphis basketball team, obviously. Had some ups and downs this season. Now if they win the next 3 games, they're obviously going to be able to be Conference USA regular season champions. We're also going to talk about Will Barton a little bit. Played a season low 6 minutes last night. Leading scorer playing 6 minutes, obviously. That is not very common. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the next game Saturday. The most important game on the schedule, no matter what Josh Pastner says. UTEP. Conference USA Championship goes to UTEP, and they play Saturday at 1 o'clock. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. First of all, let's start from the top, Scott. The student section. We're students. I'm a sophomore. You're a junior. This has been a problem that predates us. This is something that has been going on for the better part of 20, 30 years, back to the Mid-South Coliseum days. Scott, what's your opinion on the current state of what the student section is going on?
I think the main issue with the student section is they don't seem to get into the games. They'll show up and they'll cheer when they need to. They get into the games at late in game situations when they need to. But the rest of the game, they just sit and text. It's up to the blue crew and the band and the cheerleaders to do all the cheers.
So what we're talking about here, we have a student body made up of avid texters, and that is a problem. No, but seriously, not only is the attendance at the student section bad, Scott, it's more than just that. It's the fact that the students that are there, and I'm not talking about the band, and I'm not talking about the blue crew, because obviously what the band and the blue crew does is fantastic. They are not only are they the heart and soul, I mean, they are the student section. When you talk about the student section, I mean, they start the cheers, they have the cutouts, they come up with everything. My problem is this, and I wrote a column about it today. The University of Memphis basketball team is the 3rd winningest program in the NCAA since 2000, behind only Duke and Kansas. That, my friend, is elite company. Now, you can say, oh, well, you can't compare because Duke and Kansas have on-campus stadiums. Well, maybe not. But I'm not looking at on-campus, and this isn't a debate about what's on campus and what's not. I guarantee you, FedEx Forum is a state-of-the-art facility. It's an NBA facility. It's pristine, it's beautiful, and it's new. If that doesn't attract students, I don't know what will. And I'm not sure an on-campus stadium for basketball even fixes anything, because, again, the university, like I wrote on Tuesday, it probably can't construct anything close to what FedEx Forum is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you don't even need an on-campus arena to have a good student section. You look at Georgetown and Marquette. They both play in NBA arenas. Georgetown plays where the Wizards play, and Marquette plays where the Bucks play, I believe. And they have incredible student sections there. Georgetown has 2, one at either end of the court, and they fill it up every single game. So the fact that the FedEx Forum is not on campus is not an excuse anymore.
Scott, here's my thing. R.C. Johnson last summer considered cutting the seats by 1,000. Obviously, that would affect mostly the upper levels, 201 and 232, and selling those seats and tickets to general admissions. Now, this is my thought process, and I'll ask you in a minute. There is no doubt about it to me. R.C. Johnson should have done this last summer. He should have cut them, because here's my deal. Students don't deserve them. The way that they attend games, it's almost sickening, because you talk about a student base that's been spoiled. 3 of the last 5 years, the University of Memphis men's basketball team has been to a Sweet 16, an Elite 8, and a national championship. That is unprecedented. I don't care who you are, Duke, Kansas, Marquette, whoever. That does not happen. Not in this day and age. It doesn't happen. It used to happen, but now teams are good. It's a new age where every team is good. I know I'm sounding like Josh Pastner here a little bit, but the fact of the matter is, that's not easy to do by any stretch. It's hard. It's historic. before the season was vacated, 07-08 season, they were the winningest program over 4 years in college basketball ever. And student attendance does not reflect that. Student attendance reflects, oh well, they're a middle of the pack Conference USA team like SMU or UAB. They're not responding like they should. So I say cut them now, cut them by 50%, and then let them complain afterwards. But until then, I think you need to go ahead and do away with them. Sell them to the public, give them to somebody who wants them, somebody who will buy them, somebody who will be there and cheer and promote some kind of atmosphere. Because right now, as it stands, there is no college basketball atmosphere at the FedEx Forum. Period. Like I wrote in my column, it feels like a pro game with a pep band. That's why. Do you have any extra thoughts on that?
No, you pretty much summed it up.
Should R.C. Johnson cut him by 50%?
Yes, absolutely, I think, in the end, because the students, like you said, they don't show up to the games that they should. They show up to the big games. They'll show up to Tennessee. They'll show up to Georgetown, Gonzaga. Games against UCF, SMU, Tulane. The students traditionally have not shown up to those games, and obviously it's just because the competition level is going to be lower. But you look at Duke. They'll play. They played UAB a couple weeks ago, and their student section was packed, as it always is. So we should, be more like that.
And Scott, this season in University of Memphis basketball history has been one of highs, and it's been one of lows. I mean, let's be honest. When Josh Pastner signed this recruiting class last summer, I mean, when it was all here, there was an enormous amount of excitement, of rejuvenation, of hope that was almost absent after, obviously, John Calipari left for Kentucky. It hasn't played out the way that most fans have envisioned. Obviously, Jelon Kendrick transfers to Ole Miss, has some conduct problems, Pastner doesn't want to deal with it. Andrew Garcia goes pro in the middle of the season. Who saw that coming? And then Wesley Witherspoon obviously he was a distraction to the team in January after the SMU loss. Obviously, he's suspended for a few reasons, and he misses 5 weeks. He's suspended for 2 games. He misses an extra few weeks because of knee soreness in that knee. He had surgery on in December. So, if they're through 28 games, they're 21-7. Mm-hmm. All things considered, that's pretty good. You know what I mean? But do they legitimately have a chance, in your opinion, to make the NCAA tournament as an at-large?
I think they do, but ultimately it's going to depend on these last 3 games, obviously. They have 2 games against sub-500 teams, Tulane and Carolina, and UTEP. UTEP's the big money game. If the Tigers can win out the season, they absolutely are in a position to be an at-large team. But if they suffer a loss to anyone other than UTEP, it's going to be incredibly difficult for them to get there without winning the conference championship.
If they lose, if they lose to UTEP, it's over. They're not making the out. They cannot lose another game in the regular season if they want to make the tournament as an at-large. UTEP lost to UCF at home this week. That automatically makes that game a must-win because UTEP's RPI obviously is going to go down. Memphis swept UCF. It wouldn't make sense to go out and lose to UTEP, and it would not help their resume. It would not put them in a better position. As it stands today, the University of Memphis is tied for first place with Southern Miss and UAB. Now they obviously own the tiebreaker, but that's only good. That's only good for seeding in the tournament. If the season ended today, they'd be co-champions. That's how it would be. Does co-champions get you in the tournament as an at-large? I don't know. I don't know. See, Conference USA is better. Top to bottom, Conference USA is better. But at what point does parity become mediocrity? Because you have, the UCFs of the world who go and they're 14-0 to start the season. They get up to number 18 in the rankings, and then they enter Conference USA and they lose 7 straight. I think they ended up losing 8 straight before they finally won a game. At what point does somebody look at the Tigers' resume and say, well, Conference USA is better, but they've got some bad losses. Let's not forget. They lost to SMU at home, who admittedly has played better in Conference USA this season. I think they're not far behind Memphis in the standings. Last I checked, they had 4 losses, so they're playing a lot better in Conference USA. But again, you lose to Tulsa at home. Anytime you lose a game at home is bad, especially to a Conference USA opponent, which historically has not been something that the Tigers have done. Lose to Conference USA opponents at home. And so, to me, to win the conference, to get into the NCAA tournament as an at-large, you have to win the next 3 games, no question. And you also probably have to at least get to the finals of the Conference USA tournament. And obviously, one of the bigger issues around this team is the fact that leading scorer, freshman guard Will Barton, played a season-low 6 minutes against Houston on Tuesday night. Scott Franklin, he had a terrible performance against Bryce. He reverted back to some of his old tricks where he was trying to play flashy and worrying about himself over some of his teammates, more selfishly on last Saturday, and Tuesday it reflected, and he played 6 minutes in a pretty tight game for most of the way. That's your leading scorer, and some would argue the Tigers' best prospect. What do you make of that?
I think that Will Barton, of all players on the team, needs to be on the court as much as possible. Obviously, he didn't have the greatest games at Rice. Against Houston, he didn't have a great game either, but he only played 6 minutes. You don't get into game flow in 6 minutes, especially since those 6 minutes weren't all together. They were separated, throughout the first half and a little bit of the second.
Now, but going forward, it doesn't favor the Tigers if Will Barton keeps logging minutes like this. And again, who knows? Pastor does game by game. He shuffled the starting lineup last night. Joe Jackson obviously not starting for the first time this season. It just, to me, in order for this team to have any kind of success in the NCAA tournament, should they get there, Will Barton, and even the conference tournament, Will Barton has got to be on the floor for a long period of time because, again, he's long, he's athletic, his basketball IQ, while it sometimes is questionable, is generally good, and you need him on the floor. And Josh said, Wesley Witherspoon is his best player. Well, maybe so, but the fact of the matter is that Will Barton is your leading scorer, and he has to be out there on the floor.
And what you said about teaching lessons at this late in the season, you can't make a point to a player by leaving him on the bench, especially when these are must-win games. You don't sacrifice a game. You don't sacrifice a loss in order to teach a player a lesson this late in the year.